Deck building is a genre that has been popular since the days of Dominion, now evolving into bag building as well as card crafting. Apparently, as humans, we like the idea of just pulling random things from a bag and seeing what we get. Basically taking it down to the equivalent of putting your hand in a bag of Rebels and hoping that you don't get a peanut one. But what games should you consider from this category? Are they all good? What are the best? Well, that's what I'm here to tell you today. My top 10 deck/bag building games of all time. Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector from the Broken Meeple. Thanks for tuning in and watching this top 10. If you like what you see, please don't forget to click the subscribe button below. Yes, you're going to notice the odd format change here and there. I'm kind of on an experimental craze with my videos at the moment, trying to get them to look a little bit more professional, get some more features that way. I've invested in a new laptop, I've invested in a new lens that is on the way soon. I'm going to maybe go back to that whole bokeh effect thing in a future video, but that's what the lens is for, you know, a much better Sigma lens to see what I can do with. But for now, gotta get on with some content, and this is my top 10 deck/bag building games. What am I on about here? Well, deck building since Dominion has just gone like crazy in games, and it's evolved since then into two separate sub-genres, which are still kind of part of this genre, hence I'm bringing them all together here. And for that, bag building and card crafting. Now, I don't like it when it's a side thing in a game, at least not the deck building side of things. Deck building is kind of something I want to be the focus. I want you to go, right, this is what you're doing, you are deck building. Not a game where it's like, you are worker placing with this action selection and this trading over here, oh, and by the way, this little bit is done by the deck building. It's like, no, I'm not interested in that. What I want is full-on pureness. I'm a purist, put it that way. So, these are my 10 favorites of all time. Deck, bag, card, whatever it is, as long as it's got that kind of personal resource that you are constantly tweaking and trimming or bloating to your heart's content in order to make it your own. It's a great fun mechanic, and these are my favorite 10. Now, I won't be pulling these items off my shelf, but you will be getting photos transitioning in and, you know, the actual game title there and that. It's just easier to do with this kind of distance from the lens. But my number 10 is an AEG game called Automobiles. Automobiles was a kind of unique, innovative idea. This thing of creating a racing game with the bag building part of it. You're racing around a track and trying to finish the race. Okay, everybody knows how to do that by now, don't they? But on top of that, the way that you are racing around the track in terms of what gears you're on, what side of the track you're on, you know, what equipment you're using, is all done by bag building. You have a randomized set of cards based on different things like your performance, your brakes, your handling, and with those cubes that are all in this bag, as well as these gear cubes, which are basically different shades of black, white, and grey, you pull these out and use them to move the car around the track. It's basically NASCAR racing. So, big oval ring for the most part, although the expansion does include some slightly different tracks. And the great thing I love about this is not only just the sheer idea of it, you know, racing along with bag building is already a pretty interesting concept, but also just how much fun it is to do. The turns should not take someone too long, providing they're used to this type of genre, although playing it with 4 to 5 players might take a little bit too long, so maybe I suggest keeping it at 3, and 2 with some of the expansion maps in particular are pretty good with 2. But it's a good fun bag builder, you know, just everybody gets the concept of racing. It's just a case of making your bag as efficient as possible so that you can race across that track faster than opponents. Sometimes can lead to a kind of a runaway leader, but for the most part, I've had some pretty good tight finishes, and you can even play this in a campaign kind of Grand Prix mode, well, whatever you want to call the NASCAR equivalent of that, in the expansion that came out for it. So I still enjoy this one. In fact, you can see it on my shelf right now. Need to get it to the table a bit more, I think. So that's my number 10, Automobiles. My number 9, I currently keep in a giant box up there, and that is Marvel Legendary. Marvel Legendary is one of the old deck builders that was around, basically taking the Marvel license and turning it up to 11. This one allows you to combine many different heroes, and I mean many different heroes. It's got to be ridiculous by now with expansion after expansion after expansion coming out and just making everything crazy. With this, you have a mastermind villain that you are fighting along with their own villain and henchman groups. They're all shuffled into a deck along with a scheme, which is essentially the plan. So what is your plan? Is it the Skrulls invading? Is it, robbing this bank? Is it destroying the world? Is it creating a horde of zombie mutants, that kind of thing? And then you create a hero deck from whatever combination of heroes you like. You want to take the base set, you'll probably have some very basic ones like, Cyclops and Wolverine and maybe, Captain America. But then you can get the expansions to get like the Guardians of the Galaxy, Heroes of Asgard, more X-Men, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Incredible Hulk sort of legacy bit. You name it, there's an expansion for it. It's kind of crazy, and that's why there is a giant crate on my shelf up there in order to hold it all. What's holding it back? Mainly the fact that it's a bit of a setup bugbear to deal with because I've got to get the whole thing down and then find out what decks I'm using. But I enjoy this one, I tweak about with different solo modes, but personally I think it's better to play this game as a sort of two-handed, free-handed player game, so you're by yourself and then you just control multiple hands. It's not too difficult, you're combining heroes from them anyway, but it's a good use in the Marvel license, there's a ton of content out for it, it's not a complicated game, it's just a pretty hard one when you start getting into the future heroes. That's number 9, Marvel Legendary. My number 8 I mentioned during the intro to this video. It is the one, it is the only, it is the original, you might say, Dominion. Dominion is just a really cool deck building game. It is the purest deck builder out there. The original one that came out and basically said, here's deck building, it is here to stay, boom, go, let's do this. And by now, it's gotten so bloated that to have every single card of this game is kind of tantamount to Magic the Gathering levels of addiction. You might want to be a little bit concerned if you have every card for this game, because I play this when I can, but I do not play this often enough to warrant every single expansion, especially when some of them are god-awful expansions. To have every single card, is there really anybody out there who's playing this game religiously enough that they use every single set on a regular basis? I'm like, come on, that can't be true. But for me, what did I keep? I kept Seasides, Prosperity, Hinterlands, and come on, Guilds. Yes, and with those, I'm comfortable. I don't need any more expansions on top of that. It fills a big box in the other room. I've got a crate for it, and it does the trick. I don't need to sleeve it or anything, and I think those sets were probably my favourites of the lot. I've no intention of buying any more sets, but with this one, I don't need to. There's so much variety in the game, and with the right players, it's super quick. It's like, right, go, buy the gold, right, buy a village. You can literally go at hyperspeed when playing this game if you know just the general idea of Dominion. As soon as you absorbed at the start of the game, right, and these are my locations, okay, fine, yeah, we'll go with that. Right, let's go. And from that, it just works really well. Get a slow player in this and it will drag, but for the most part, I just go through this at hyperspeed and just see what happens. Now, that doesn't mean I want to play this against the professional level players who can literally at the start of the game go, I win 20 moves. It's like, it's like I haven't even started yet and they've already decided I've lost, which probably tends to actually happen in that way. I can't change time, unfortunately. But yeah, Dominion, still a good one for me. It's one of the originals and it's still really good. This one is actually one of the ones that's kind of it's kind of escaped that whole stigma of, this is a popular one to hate on. Things like Catan and Splendor and a few games like that are kind of like, oh, it's popular to hate them now. Don't tend to hear the same with Dominion. I wonder why. Oh well, doesn't matter. Dominion, my number 8. My number 7, you might be able to see on the shelf, I'm not sure. I don't think the angle will go down the line enough, but this is going into that subgenre of games, and yes, people might be thinking, well, why don't I just do deck building and just deck builders? Well, that's because if I tried to do the two subgenres as their own top 10, it wouldn't work out. It just literally would be like, okay, here's like 50 deck builders, here's about 10 bag builders, and even then they're not all good, and here's about 3 of the other ones. So it's kind of like I need to mix them all together. This is the subgenre of card crafting, a new innovation by John DeClaire, and this is Mystic Vale. Mystic Vale is a phenomenal card game where it basically takes the idea of deck building and then goes, how can we twist this around a little bit? Normally you have a deck and you add cards to the deck, you take cards out, you trim and trash and bloat and whatever, and it could be at whatever size it needs to be for your particular game. Mystic Vale does things a little bit differently. The theme is neither here or there, like most deck builders. Deck building is kind of hard to get a theme to stick, but with this, you're essentially magic users, you're druids, you're casting spells and summoning creatures and trying to basically, get victory points more than the opponent. Again, theme, neither here or there. It just makes for a very picturesque setting with the cards. But the idea with this is that your deck is only 20 cards, never changes. But what you're doing is card crafting. You're crafting the cards literally as you go through the game. Your cards may start with some bare bone abilities or might be completely blank. It's just literally a blank card in a sleeve. Doesn't look particularly impressive at first until you start buying the advancements, which are these clear plastic sleeves that you put into the card via the sleeve, and then top, middle and bottom you construct the card. So your card could be completely focused on mana regen. Cool, right, as soon as I play this card out of the deck I get like 6 mana, like loads to buy more cards. Another one could be focused on point scoring. One could be to generate like tree symbols, which basically is kind of like a push your luck mechanic, where as you draw cards from the deck, if you draw too many of the blight symbols, or like the red decay symbols I think they're called, you can't draw any more cards and you forfeit your turn. It's a push your luck, like, do I go? Never mind. The green symbols cancel them out. So there's a lot of different paths to victory you can do with this, even with the base set. But when you start throwing in expansion after expansion after expansion, which, like you say, most stuff from Moldorak does tend to get that sort of thing, it just it's not even feel bloated. You only have to choose so many of them, and there's lots of really fun abilities in there. And even better, when you get the big box that I've got down there, the Conclave one, it gives you a mechanism for playing the game so that 2 players take their turns simultaneously, and you have 2 different areas from which you can buy cards. It's a table hog, not gonna gloss over that rather major point, but if you're worried that 4-player Mystic Vale takes a bit too long, or even 3-player Mystic Vale, play it with the Conclave mechanic, I think it's called Equinox. You'd be surprised how quickly you can get through the game now when 2 players have to take their turns. Of course, you got to avoid the slow player, but if you want to check the game out, then check out the app for it. I think it's on Steam as well. It's a fantastic port for the game, but even the card game itself, I still really love this one. Mystic Vale, great new innovative mechanic. That's what I like to see. My number 6 requires us to go back to deck building and then revisit the Legendary series. Now, I'm not putting every single Legendary series on this list. This is the only 2 that you'll get. Marvel was the original one, and then it spawned into this whole series of games called Legendary Encounters. Now, to be honest, I could amalgamate 2 on this list because in fact, I've got 3 in the box up there, and all 3 of them I enjoy. But out of all of them, I have Firefly, which is good. Artwork sucks, but it's good. Predator, I really like, but it's not quite as good as Alien Legendary, the first one that came out for the Encounter series. It is still the best one hands down, regardless of whether you like the Alien or the Predator license more. The Alien one just felt cleaner. It was easier to play than Predator because Predator throws in extra modes, and it had more variety in content than something like, say, Firefly. I'm not interested in all these new ones they've done like Buffy and X-Files and James Bond. It's starting to kind of jump the shark at this point. But with Alien Legendary, it has that same mechanic of combine a bunch of hero characters to make a deck. Here's the villain deck. You flip the villain cards over and then react to what's going on. But what this one tries to do is, rather than, unlike Marvel Legendary, it tries to throw in a story. You're playing through the movies as you go. With the expansion, you get to play with like the Alien Covenant style scenarios, and you can mix and match the objectives, so which kind of does lead to some weird combinations, but personally, I just like to play through the movie. So the second movie, you've got to, first you've got to find the aliens, then you've got to set up the sentry guns, and then you've got to dispose of the Queen. The third one might be very different though, where you've got to hunt down that one alien that's at the end, although you're going to have to take the theme with a little pinch of salt because it does, you could play through the first Alien movie, there was only one alien, and you're still finding a ton of aliens coming through. But it works great, and this is probably one of the most thematic deck builders you will get for 2 reasons. Firstly, the cards come out face down until you scan the cards. Makes sense, the aliens are stealthy. You don't know that this threat is coming. You're kind of like, ooh, on edge, I don't know. You've got your big scanner in front of you, woo, 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 and it makes more sense that it would do that. But the second reason, which is just like I call this the best way to die in any board game. Not something you would expect to have on a top 10 list, but oh well, why not? It's the face huggers. Face huggers scare me to death. I hate them, okay? They are, hate them. They're basically the closest thing to an alien spider. So it's like, I hate spiders, I'm arachnophobic. So yeah, not good for me. And I have had many heart attacks where I have played the old PC games of Alien vs Predator or Alien Isolation. Seriously, you want a heart attack, play Alien Isolation. That is a scary game. But when you get to the points where the face huggers are around, I am making bricks because I'm waiting for the point where I just walk around on the screen, panicking like crazy, junk, and then this happens. Guaranteed heart attack. Well, in the movies, same sort of thing. I hated those to pot. In the card game, you get the facehugger and it appears in front of you. And if you don't kill it off immediately, then it lays an egg inside you and puts a chestburster card in your deck. Okay, it literally puts a chestburster card in your deck. The egg in your thing is optional extra, but maybe for people you don't like at the table. But with the chestburster in your deck, you now carry on, but as soon as you shuffle your deck again and the chestburster goes back in, suddenly it's like, oh, okay, what happens? Because as soon as the chestburster comes back out of the deck, you die. And it just, instant death. I can't think of a more thematic way you can die in a deck building adventure game than the facehugger. It's annoying when it happens, but it's just fun. It's just really cool. Granted, your odds of winning are kind of reduced when someone does die like that, but it's cool. It's just a really fun way to die, and certainly it does mean that when you play it repeated times, you're more thinking about, right, the face huggers could be in the deck. Be alert. And then it happens anyway. So, yep, Alien Legendary, still the best of the Alien Encounter games. Sorry, of the Encounter Legendary games. Alien. My number 5 is possibly, I would say, the smallest deck builder on this entire list. Yeah, I'd say it was the smallest. You can buy it in a pack that's literally about this big. I mean, it's like, a tiny little card box. Granted, the box I have in the other room of this is a big crate. You can go a little bit overboard with this game as well. But, if you want to literally just pick it up as a 2-player, easy play card game, you can just buy it for about a tenner and it will do you for a long time, and that is Star Realms. Now, you can go / Hero Realms as well, not Cthulhu Realms. Avoid that one, that's a bit different. You could go to Hero Realms, but personally I prefer Star. Reason for 2 reasons. Well, 2 reasons. One, the space theme I think looks better on the cards artwork-wise and just appeals to me more than generic fantasy. Secondly, I think the Hero 1 just goes far too heavy on combat. There are some cards in there that I swear are unbalanced when it comes to how hard they hit you. Long games are not worth doing in Hero Realms. Star Realms is a little bit more balanced, but even then, it's just so simple to play. I mean, you've got the standard deck building rules anyway of here's your 5 cards, use them or lose them. But the idea is that you've got to whittle your opponent down to 0 HP. You've got 4 factions of ships. You buy them from a central row. You've got a currency to buy and a currency to fight. Apart from that, you've got a few little abilities of like trashing cards or, the outposts and things, which are kind of like extra defensive mechanisms. But the rules are very simple and the game looks gorgeous. I love the artwork in this game. I think I'm just a fan of spacey artwork. I don't know why. I mean, Empires of the Void 2 on my shelf and various other examples, just end up having like artwork that just sings to me. And in here, it's no different. But as I say, buy the 2-player packs and you'll have enough cards to last you for a fair while. But if you want to go nuts, you can buy the various expansions. You can get Star Realms Frontiers, I think it was called. I think they kickstarted a new box recently. Although, don't feel you have to go too mad. I have Space Realms Frontiers. That is plenty for me. It's got a few expansions in it, but I don't need all the weird stuff like gambits and heroes and all that stuff. I mean, that's just taking it to a new complicated level. I just like to be able to go, look, here's a bunch of cards, shuffle them, boom, get it down and have fun. And this one, I guarantee, will do just that if you're looking for a 2-player specific card game for a deck builder. Although, with Frontiers and some of those expansions, you can get the ability to play 3 and 4 player, although more preferably, I like the fact you can play it solo. There are some challenge modes where you go up against different objectives, like the giant blob that ate everything and various other weird stuff. And with those, you actually play against like an Automna AI deck. They're very challenging, but they're good fun, and they add just a little bit of flavour and theme into this game. But it's highly enjoyable, even if the app is a little bit hit and miss in terms of its reliability, not to mention the challenge rating is a little bit overpowered in that one. But grab the physical game for cheap or for expense, whatever, it's your choice. My number 4 I did a video on recently. This was probably my most recent review before Solar Storm was done, and this is going back to the card crafting mechanic, and it is a huge monster. It is down there, it almost takes up an entire calyx square by itself. And yes, I admit, as much as I give this like a 9 out of 10 rating, it's not necessarily something for everyone. You know, the huge box, a lot of stuff going on, it's a meaty game, it's definitely one for gamers and definitely for people who want, you know, this big meaty experience and don't mind the storage and the expense. That is Edge of Darkness. This is a brilliant card crafting game if you can sort of deal with the box size and the initial investment of getting to grips with it. The rules themselves are not actually that complicated, but as you're playing it, you've got multiple things to consider. Firstly, the card crafting is there, but it's a communal deck of cards, so you're building this really cool card, other people can still use it. Granted, if it's allied with you, which is a separate sleeve with your banner on it, if they use the abilities, they pay you money, but still, if they've got the money, then it's a good thing for them to basically go, well, your card's really good there. I don't mind giving you a couple of gold for that. Yoink! They get the power. Really cool. But on top of that, you've got this worker placement system with these agents that you use, these miniatures, and you put them on these 10 different locations, of which there's, with the don't get the very base version of this. Always get the standard one with the stretch goals. You've got like 30 locations in there, so you pick like 10 out of the 30, and it just creates all sorts of weird combinations for actions that you can do, such as, you know, allying, like getting your allegiances on the cards, creating new cards, battling threats, which is done by this massive cube tower that just sits there and holds the threats. You drop cubes into it and it dictates who it attacks. Oh my god, I could go on for ages about this game, and I can't describe it too much more, so I highly recommend that you give the video review a look. It's one of my extended reviews that I've done recently where it goes into a lot of detail about the game because it is quite vast. But this one, you know, if you asked me this maybe about a year ago, this probably wouldn't have made the list because I was struggling to get it to the table, but I've been playing it recently solo during isolation, and the solo mode's good. You play against an Automna player, that it behaves very much like a 2-player game, simple deck of cards for the opponent to choose what they do, and some action cards that differ from the normal setup. And it's really cool. I now get to play it solo, and I probably will find that I'll play it more solo than I will as a multiplayer, just because the main people I do play it with also have the game, and we're in isolation. So it's kind of hard to do that, but I really love this one. And I get it, not for everyone. If you played this and were underwhelmed, I can totally see that. But for me, it just ticked every single box that I wanted to do, and if it was just a bit smaller in scope and maybe a bit easier to store and maybe not quite like the mammoth it is, then maybe it would have been a 10 out of 10, but still well-deserved 9. Check out the review for more details. My number 3 is a little darling bag builder. Yes, we're going back to bag building now, and is this my... No, I don't want to spoil it. This is a really good bag builder. I mean, we're like 10 out of 10 bag building game for me, and it is the nice, lightweight coffee roaster. Coffee roaster, I originally got I believe it was a Korean version of it back in Essen, my first or second Essen, and then I've upgraded it to the new DLP game Stronghold version purely just because the other one was getting worn down and I slightly preferred the aesthetics of this one. But it's essentially the same game. But with Coffee Roaster, very simple. It's a bag builder where you roast a coffee. Yeah, cool. You like that theme? I'm actually starting to get more into coffee myself. But I am on decaf. Sorry guys, but gotta watch the caffeine. But with Coffee Roaster, you spend half the game building up the coffee. So you got tokens in the bag, you can do all these funky abilities with them, like convert some tokens into more, draw some out, put some in, trash others, use these color tokens like body and acidity and that to, perform other actions or to get certain other tokens in the bag. And then when you're done, you can basically time how long you want to do it on this little gauge, but the longer you leave it, the more you got to deal with smoke because you're roasting it for so long. And then eventually you go, right, done. Here's my cup. Here's my mug. Draw 10 tokens, put it in the cup, and not a literal cup, it's a picture of one, and you basically see how well you did. You're trying to get a specific roast rating, you're trying to get other factors like the acidity and the taste and body right, you're trying to maybe put sweetness in there, you've got some leeway for trash items, depending on what you've unlocked during the first half of the game, but it's a relatively simple game. It takes about 10 minutes to go through a single recipe. You could play through a 3-part recipe like campaign as they have in 30 minutes. It's just a really fun, addictive game. Now, it is solo only. That's not necessarily a problem for me and for a lot of people. But if coffee is just something that you're I mean, to be fair, when I first got this, I didn't even like coffee. I'm a tea drinker through and through, and I didn't even like coffee. I've now somewhat adapted to it, and now I like instant coffee fine, I will drink a proper, decent bean coffee fine, and I will much prefer a bean coffee. I've even bought myself a grinder and, an AeroPress to actually make, try out different decaf bean coffees. Not many of them around, but at least I can try something, and I like the taste of coffee now. I still prefer tea, but I still like coffee. And to have a game like that, if it was Tea Roaster, wouldn't make much sense. But if it was Tea Drinker or something, then, maybe that would have been fine for me as well. But theme aside, it's still a good, fun solo bag builder, and it's definitely had quite a lot of plays for me. Whether you do it on the app or the physical version is up to you, but personally, if you're going to do a bag builder, have something where you can pull stuff out of a bag. That's kind of the whole point. So, number 3. On number 2, and we return to deck building again, and this one is one of the more recent deck builders that's entered my collection, I would say, purely because I never really got hold of it before. This is Dale of Merchants. Dale of Merchants from Samilasco, I believe it's pronounced. Recently did a Kickstarter for the third expansion to it. And I'm certainly a fan of this game, put it that way, yes. You can play it on Tabletop Simulator as well, if you like. I'll even teach it to you one day, perhaps, if you like. But this is a really cool, simple deck builder. Not dirt simple. I mean, I'd say Star Realms is simpler and Dominion is simpler, but it's still pretty straightforward. You're all basically animal folk. You've got these animal factions that you mix into a deck and it's a communal market, but it's not a VP race. Well, it's a race, it's just not VP, it's bad wording. But you're racing to build 8 stalls in front of you. You're all basically merchants. And the first one to build their 8th stall wins. And you do it by playing cards in your hand equal to the value of the stall you're doing, 1 to 8. So 1 to 5 you can do with a single card, but 6, 7, and 8 you're going to have to use combos. And you might even still use combos for the lower ones because they're numbered 1 to 5. But what I love about this is just how smooth it is. You've got 1 of 4 actions to do a turn. Do one of those, your turn's done. You pick X number of races depending on player count, shuffle them all together, boom, give everybody the level 1 cards, the rest are in the deck. And then you've just got all these really cool abilities that the cards have with some tweaks to the deck building mechanic. Because now you don't have to use every card in your hand. You don't discard down. You have to physically spend your turn discarding cards. Otherwise you've got to spend them by various other means. And whatever you buy goes straight into your hand. Not many games do this. Most of the time you buy it, it goes in your discard, and then you got to go, oh well, eventually that will come back, but I look forward to it. No, this is like, I really like the look of that accordion over there. It's mine for the next turn, and it works well. Trust me, there are weirder items in there than accordion. But the great thing also is these animal factions all have very distinct ways of playing. Some are chaotic, some are just downright take that, like screwing over other players' decks. Some swap cards around, some mess around with the market, some make it easier to make stalls. There are so many of these different animal factions by now with the expansions, it's ridiculous. But to be honest, you could buy one of the mini sets that are just 6 factions and that's it, you use them, and it'd be pretty solid just with that. It's a really good cheap set if you do that. Me, I've got the collector's box with the first 2 small expansions with the stuff that's in the collector set, and I will no doubt get the 3rd mini set when it comes out. So I've got a lot of animal factions and cosmic encounter style player powers. Yes, I'm kind of really loving this game. It is a really solid game. I enjoy teaching it, I enjoy playing it, so much variety, and it just, I mean, some of the factions are maybe a bit harder to work with, and maybe some of the player powers you have to think, okay, maybe this will complicate things a bit, but I wouldn't throw them into a player's first game anyway. But if you want to make this streamlined, you can. If you want to make it complex, you can. But those animal factions are just so varied. I love trying out different ones and seeing what happens, and yet it still runs silky smooth and doesn't take me long to teach the game, and doesn't take that long to play it either. 60 minutes, 75 should be all it takes for you to finish this game, even with 4 players. 90 at the max if you are really slow, but like I say, 90 minutes for a slow game I'll take. It's just really solid, cute artwork, love this one. Dale of Merchants, give it a try if you have not already. And my number 1 deck builder. Yes, you're probably now grabbing your pitchforks because a certain game hasn't made this list. We'll get onto that in honourable mentions. But, yep, this little one, I can actually even pull it off the shelf. There you go. A Valley of the Kings. Valley of the Kings. This one is such a good deck builder. I love this one, whether it's in portable version or the big premium version that I also have. I've kept both because one's good for travel, one isn't. And Valley of the Kings, wow. I mean, it's standard deck building rules. So here's your cards, use them, lose them. But the twist in this one is that you buy it from a communal pyramid. You have to, it's basically Egyptian themed. You are pharaohs preparing for your inevitable burial. You kind of get a rough end of the stick, really. I'm not quite certain where the upside of this is. It's like, I get to rule over these people, but wait, I've already got to prepare for my death in a bit soon? You know, so I kind of want to live a few more years. But, I don't know, they're different cultures. But with this one, you buy from the base of a pyramid, and as you buy from the base, it crumbles down, so the cards become available. But the great thing with this is that all the different items and stuff that you put in, that you can mix up the sets with the expansions, they all have different card abilities and they're all unique. So you've got lots of variety. But the twist is that you don't score for anything in your deck. Anything in your deck is completely useless in terms of points. So where do they come from? You have to put them in your tomb. It's a separate action, which is quite slow. You have to maybe use some other card abilities to do it quicker. But when they go in your tomb, it's a set collection mechanic. So 1, 3, 6, 9, 16, 25, 36, you know, that kind of scale depending on how big the set is, because they're different sizes. So as the game goes on, you see the timer of that big deck of cards running out as you get into the more powerful stuff, and it's like, at some point I need to start putting these cards into this tomb, but you want to hang on to them because they've got cool abilities and they're worth money to purchase other cards, but then you need to get them in your tomb when you decide to do it. Great decision with that, but then it gets very tense at the end of the game because it's like, uh-oh, it's going, entomb that, get it all in there. And you realise that you might have left it too late or didn't give yourself enough card abilities to do it. You can make some really interesting decks with this. I have made bloated decks where you draw like half your deck. I've made, most of my decks tend to be when I've trimmed it down to literally like 6 or 7 cards in my deck, so I know exactly what I'm drawing each round. Has its risks, but you know, I enjoy the variety of styles that you can play this game, and mixing those different sets allows you to get lots of different combos and paths to victory that you try. But just even then, the underlying theme that you have to get stuff out of your deck into your tomb for it to score. Very few things that do that, although Dale of Merchants, you can say, does that as well. The idea of building your stalls with cards from your deck means that at some point you have to decide whether the card's useful to you now, or do you stick it in the stall? I love that decision. It's like a multi-use card aspect. So Valley of the Kings, whether you get the portable one, which has a slightly better graphic design than the premium one, but obviously a small card, small deck, or you get the premium version, which gives you tarot-sized cards, premium sleeves, all the expansions in one set, character powers. It is a really good set. But whichever one that you can find and whichever one you want to get, entirely up to you. I have done a review on the premium set where I speak about the basic set, but I don't think I ever did a review on the normal one. So, you know, that's it for there. So yeah, my number 1, Valley of the Kings. Where's Orleans, you horrible man? Yes, you're probably wondering about that. Well, I don't like Orleans. I'm sorry. I don't. I don't hate it. I just think it's a bit overrated.
Kill him. Kill him now.
You know, I mean, it's a bag builder. I like it, but what are you actually doing with the bag building? I mean, one, you're making a coffee. This one, you're racing. What do you do in Orleans? You level up tracks. You put little tokens on these bits on your board and you level up tracks. That's all you do. It is the most generic, boring medieval theme that there is. So even though the bag building's fine, I just don't care about anything I'm doing in the game. So I don't think Orleans is bad at all, but you know, with the generic theme, the pointless map with like connecting up bits on there, I don't know, it just really, it doesn't entice me back for the second go. The mechanics are fine. If you like dry beige Euro style games, then by all means grab Orleans, you'll probably have a blast with it. And I won't have a problem with it. But for me, I need that theme to draw me back in, and Orleans just doesn't have any theme. Nor did Altiplano, which I thought might be like, oh, you know, do I prefer this to that? I don't know, they're both pretty much the same. It's just put tokens on a board, unlock things, and theme, who cares? They're not bad games, just not a fan. So, we got some honourable mentions on this one, and I've already mentioned the Patreon choice on this one, which was a good old Dominion. You know, Dominion, a lot of people still really like that game, so it's not one that's going to go out anytime soon. But I had a big list of this where I went into a few honourable mentions, and I'm going to mention them just briefly now. So you're probably wondering, well, where did War Chest come in? War Chest has gone down a little bit for me lately, but it would probably be my 11 or 12. It's a really cool bag builder game. It's a 2-player or 4-player 2v2 abstract game, and you're pulling the tokens out and deciding whether to put them on a field or to use them for various like powers. It's a cool game, honestly. Give it a shot if you like abstracts. Dice Masters, is this technically a deck builder? I don't know. I mean, you kind of have your deck of heroes already, and then you build up a bag of... I mean, no, it's a bag builder. It's a bag builder with dice. It's good fun. I just kind of never really got the chance to play it. It was a 2-player only game. Tournament settings were just like, the most horrible... I don't know, I've been to some bad Magic tournaments, but yeah, I did not like the competitive scene with Dice Masters. I mean, the fact that it was the same ultra rares in every single deck, and it just like, yeah, power creep, did not like it. Friday, good solo deck builder. It used to be in the collection, it isn't anymore. It kind of got a bit repetitive for me, but it's a good game. I mean, usually if I'm at the Dice Cafe early, I will whip out Friday and just have a quick go at it. Hard as nails. I don't tend to win it very often, but very simple, where you build up your deck, conquer these hazards, get different cards into your deck, all to prepare yourself for the pirates at the end. It is hard as nails. Very challenging. It's got a learning curve to it, but, you know, theme aside, it's not like the most thematic game in the world, although it's quite amusing that when you first start, Robinson is basically sort of like, you know, he's kind of like a little bit on the stupid side, but he builds up and becomes a more competent individual as you go through the game. Paperback, great deck builder as well, but it's best played offline because, warning, do not play this on Tabletopia. It is horrible because Tabletopia does not have a good enough system to deal with shuffling deck builders, and it just becomes ultra fiddly. If there's one on Tabletop Simulator, I'd like to know that does it better, but personally, just grab the physical version. Play it solo or 2 or 3 player tops. Don't play it with any more because it will just drag out too long, but for 2-player especially, it's just a really good word deck builder. A good combination, deck building with spelling. Not being done before. Hardback was a decent enough sequel. I like Hardback fine, but it was like a bit more complicated, and I thought, well, I've already got Paperback, which is more streamlined. I like Paperback more. So this one, just simply build your deck, spell out words. But you could build your deck to have cool, funky abilities, to spell out lots of short words a lot, or you could start like kind of make your deck in the long run to build like the most mega word that you can think of. You know, you slowly build up to this one big word that you know your deck can spell. The mini expansions throw in some tweaks. I really like this one. You know, was it Tim Fowler, I think it is, the designer? It's my favourite that he's done. The Pathfinder adventure card game. This is going back quite a bit. I mean, it's a deck builder. I enjoy it. I played through a lot of the second campaign, which I think was the... Oh, what was it called? I can't remember what it was called. It was the pirate-themed one. And Skulls and Shackles, I think it was. And it was good. I mean, I played it two-handed. You level up your character with experience, get different cards. It's that. What kind of put me off it was just the sheer, like, mass setup and takedown you had to do with the game, but also the theme of it was kind of a little bit iffy because every single scenario basically involved you having this circle of locations that you dig through, you find all sorts of weird stuff at the locations that shouldn't be there, and then you're trying to find the villain who kind of is playing, you're essentially playing whack-a-mole with the villain. You know, he pops up in these decks and you're just basically sort of like, you know, trying to get him. It's like, where's he gone? It's like, and you know, whack-a-mole with a deck builder is not quite what I was after, but it was alright for a bit. I sold it on. It's an honourable mention. Then finally we got two more. DC Deck Builder. Simple deck builder. The theme is a little bit conjointed as you're combining like Superman's heat vision with Batman, for example, and villains are on your side, although that does happen in a lot of superhero films and TV shows. But this one is fine. I like it. I don't think it's amazing, but I do like DC superheroes. I like Marvel superheroes. So just to play a deck builder themed around DC is good fun for me. I just didn't really get into it enough to want to buy it myself. I think other deck builders are better. And then finally, Arctic Scavengers. Yes, this one couldn't really get it to the table as much, but I liked the twist with it that it was kind of like a survival-based deck builder game with a little combat element thrown in, but it didn't have a lot of variety in the game, even when you threw the expansions in. So things got a little bit repetitive. Not everybody tagged on to that whole combat bit at the end where you're scrounging for even more resources. But I thought the game itself was pretty solid. I used to have it in my collection. I don't have it anymore. I don't think I intend to get it back into the collection. But if somebody wants to play it and just happily reteaches me it, I'd be more than up for it. So yeah. That's a lot of deck/bag/card crafting games, you know, I mean, the deck building is the main thing, but card crafting and bag building are not ones to be forgotten, and, I mean, there's only, what, like 4 card crafting games? I can think of the trick-taking one, I can think of Edge of Darkness, I can think of Mystic Vale. I think the only other card crafter that I'm aware of is the Dead Reckoning Pirate one that's coming out, which, believe me, I'm deliberately not trying to find out too much information about it and get too much hype, but I'm intrigued by this. You know, another card crafting game. Ooh, I could go for that so badly. But with bag building, are there that many bag builders? How many did I mention on my list? I mean, we had, let's see, going down the list in total, we had Dice Masters, we had Automobiles, we had Coffee Roaster, and that's about it. You know, Orleans and Altiplano wouldn't make my list, and how many other bag builders are there, actually? There aren't that many. I mean, I don't think I would be able to do a top 10 on their own. So that's why I wanted to merge these lot in. Anyway, hope you enjoyed what you saw. I hope these are 10 deck/bag builders that you want to go for. And by all means, let me know in the comments which ones you think should have made the top 10. Which are your favorites. Tell me why you like them. Tell me why you dislike these ones. Honestly, I want to get like a whole list of these types of games because I do love this genre. This genre is a big favorite of mine, providing, again, sole focus, Great Western Trail. And, you know, it's just one that I like to play, so I'd like to get your thoughts on it as well. So that's it for me. If you like what you see, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Find me on Facebook and Twitter. Hope you're enjoying like the slight format changes as I go through. You are going to see some slight tweaks here and there with audio and sound and lighting and then backdrops and that. I am trying to keep the channel fresh as I go forward and, you know, trying to find ways of streamlining the content I do so that it can take up less time for me to film. Of course, that's not an easy thing to do. And I'm also just trying to reach out onto YouTube because, you know, you have to be able to stand out from the crowd. On top of that, live streaming is something I'm looking into. I have a laptop in the other room I need to set up and do that I've now bought. So maybe with a laptop and a new webcam and that, I might be able to, you know, find a way to make live streaming work. We'll see. Like I say, I'm trying to make the best of isolation to find ways to improve this channel, and I hope if you've got some ideas, by all means let me know in the comments, or you know, just let me know on Twitter and that, but or send me an email, brokenmeeple@gmail.com, either way. So that's it for me. I'll see you on the next top 10 list, and remember, as always, it's only a game. Take care, stay safe, and just support each other.